Hi, good morning, and welcome to The VUU. Glad you could join us on this October morning right before Halloween. We do have a special guest today, but first I'm going to have our regulars who are here. There's not many of us, so I think we've all scattered to the winds this week. Oh, there's Meg. Meg's been having a little bit of technical trouble. But anyway, I am Joanna Fontaine Crawford, and I am here in, frankly, pretty warm Austin, Texas.
And I'm Aisha Hauser, and I am in cloudy, rainy, overcast Seattle.
And I'm Bob LaValle. I'm normally the man behind the curtain for the VUU, here in beautiful, sunny, autumnal Buffalo, New York.
We dragged him out from behind the curtain this week. And we have with us Danielle Di Bona. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your title? What do you do?
My title is retired.
Nice.
I'm a part-time consulting minister at the UU Church in Weymouth, Mass. And I'm the very part-time chaplain for the palliative care program at the South Shore Hospital in Weymouth, Mass. Retired from 16 years as a hospice chaplain.
Great. So just in time for Dia de los Muertos, we'll be talking about, I guess, the art and, theology around dying. But first, everyone, tell me about what's going on in your town. Aisha, what's happening in Seattle besides rain?
Besides rain, well, everyone's been it's been a very sad week. Along with the shooting in Pilchuck, Marysville, Pilchuck, there was a shooting of a daughter and granddaughter of a elderly man. The 11-year-old was blogging about being abused by him. So it's been a very sad week here with just heinous gun violence. So, been trying to do a lot of prayers about gun control. We have a gun law coming up on Tuesday, on Election Day, to extend background checks. So, sorry, my dogs are going crazy. So it's been, a prayerful week. We're trying to hold a lot of people in prayer.
Bob, what's up with you in your neck of the woods?
Well, I've actually been away, so it's a real change of scenery. I was in Tucson last week with the UU College of Social Justice and Borderlinks trip about migrant justice at the border. I was there with a group of UU clergy, including Peter Morales, and it was a really heartbreaking and enraging week. And I can't urge people strongly enough to take that trip, because it's one thing to sort of intellectually fathom what's happening on, around our border justice, and it's another thing entirely to go sit in the federal district courtroom and watch sort of the group incarceration that goes on. They send 70 folks through at a time, and it's just a farce of due process, and it's a really that's just one of the many really disturbing things. And I think it's great work for to do as a congregation or to go individually, and we'll be talking on December 4th here on The VUU about the new sanctuary movement, and it's really exciting how UU congregations are stepping up to really live out their faith and act in resistance to the injustice at the border. So more on that later.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. I have been seeing some posts on Facebook and some colleagues and other UUs talking about things that they're doing and what's going on with that. I was also out of town last week. Mine was a little more heart-filling. I was in Atlanta with the rest of the UUA's Presidential Search Committee. We were going through, we had put out a job description in the spring. There's never been a job description for the president of the UUA.
Wow.
In fact, if you look in the bylaws, pretty much all it says is the president is the executive of the association. So we had put out the job description and asked for feedback. A lot of people gave us some, they filled out surveys, gave us some excellent ideas. We incorporated those, and if you look at UU presidential search, I believe that's it, wordpress.com. It has the new job description, and it also lays out the entire process for those of you who have been wanting to know, when do we apply and how do we suggest someone. It's all there. November 1st, we're going to have an application up, and then the week after your people come on, I believe it's like December 11th, we're going to have the Reverends Michael Tino and Matthew Johnson come on and talk more about that. But I just have to say personally, it has been just such an encouraging experience. I really think that the other people that I'm serving with are just really some of the best in the UUA. So it's been an honor.
Can you give us like the 25 words or less version of how one becomes president of the UUA?
The very, very simple way is anyone who is interested will fill out an application, and if there's someone that you think should apply, you can send us their name and we will send them the application. And it's kind of the typical stuff of, resume and fill out some essay, a couple of essay questions. And then this is going to go through July 15th, and then the committee will be studying all of these, doing reference calls, narrowing it down, and then we'll narrow it down to some finalists, and we have been charged with putting at least 2 nominees up, and it could be more. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell.
Thanks.
Hi, Hank.
The situation in Ferguson has just gotten completely out of control, and oh wait, sorry.
What?
No, just being crazy. Just being crazy. It's Halloween. I was making a joke, Meg.
Really, Ferguson's not that funny. Sorry. Out of control in Ferguson does not make me laugh. Hey, but I'm speaking. Let's just talk about out of control. Let's talk about Comcast for a minute. Let's talk about how I upgraded and then spent a long time trying to join you guys this morning. But I'm here. That's the good news. And Aisha and Danielle and I all got the red memo, which I almost never wear red. I think it's really interesting that when talking about death, we were all moved to put on our red. So I missed the beginning. It seems like people were talking about where you've been, and I will say that I don't know how you could have been with such fabulous people, because I think the very best people in the world last weekend were at the CLF board meeting. So we have an amazing board. We had a really good meeting, and yeah, it's exciting. It's all systems ahead. So I love it when organizations are fun and there's a lot of laughing. To me, that means there's health in the organization. Not if you only laugh, but if you laugh continually, even when you're working on things that are kind of boring. So
I absolutely believe that. I think a lot of creativity comes out when you're having fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Hank, other than dressing as Waldo, what are you up to?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I had some pastoral care stuff early this morning to deal with. It's just doing church stuff, and of course getting ready for Halloween and an election sermon. Combined with we have a ritual of remembrance first, and then an election sermon. And so my pivot point is the great Mother Jones quote of pray for the dead, fight like hell for the living. So that's my pivot point. That's the only way I figured I could work them both in. But the election sermon is an important thing. So.
Anything jumping out on the news that is affecting any of y'all? I mean, other than the election. Oh, and I will say, yeah, The Daily Show has been in my town, so
Yeah, did you go? Did you get to go?
No.
They've been having a lot of fun with Austin, making it sound kind of like Portland.
It is a fun and interesting city to be in.
Now, the biggest thing here is that we haven't had a hard frost yet, and like along about now in Minnesota, news and weather kind of become the same thing, you know. So we talk a lot about the weather here. There's a lot to talk about, but no, I am not a huge Halloween celebrator. I know some people, like my sister, decorates more for Halloween than for Christmas. You know, like she decorates the whole yard, and just she and her husband both. They just love it. Are you big Halloween people?
Oh yes, we are huge into Halloween, and getting ready. The fact that Halloween falls on a Friday this year, and we're in a new neighborhood where apparently a lot of people do actually trick or treat. Tom is probably at the store right now picking up tons of candy. Can't get it too early, or you know there won't be any left by Halloween.
That's right.
Yeah, we have about 200 or 300 kids come through our neighborhood last year.
Wow.
Where we are in Seattle, we get busloads of kids coming in. And actually, it was interesting reading. There was an article that went around Facebook that if you have a child that looks like an adult, then make sure you give them candy, because we did see a lot of that. My neighbor had a great idea. We gave out water, bottles of water, along with candy and potato chips and stuff.
Oh, along with the candy. That was starting to go into.
Oh no,
like,
you have to have the candy. Yeah, along with the candy.
Yeah,
my parents.
My mom was the mom who always gave out like boxes of raisins.
Oh.
And so like the only people whoever came to our house were like, you know, the little kids who were like friends of my parents. You know, which meant that like November we had this enormous pile of like, you know, peanuts in shells and raisins. You know, so, like, we were very regular in November.
Oh no.
I will say, as the owner of 2 barky little maniacal chihuahuas, I am dreading Halloween. All the dog owners will sympathize.
Yeah, I sympathize.
Yeah. No, my dogs hate it. We actually had, in the summer, we had the Blue Angels fly over the house. My poor dogs were just insane. They were so unhappy.
Well, what sort of event were you having, Aisha, that you were able to have the Blue Angels fly over?
It was my birthday party. No, I'm kidding. It was Seafair. Seafair is a yearly, Boeing is here, and they do a whole big air show.
Right.
It's a huge thing, apparently, which I'd never heard of until I moved to Seattle. No, I don't know that anyone in New York City's ever heard of Seafair.
Not so much. Hey, Danielle, speaking of dogs, are you at home? Is your cute little puppy near you?
Yeah, you want to see her?
Yes, I do.
Okay, give me a second.
This is what we're constantly...
Does the dog have a costume? Otherwise, we don't really care. It's,
Right now, with Lynn Unger, all of our calls involve, let's see the puppy, let's see the puppy.
That's a cute puppy.
It's so much easier to look at a puppy on a screen than to take care of it.
Yep.
Well, we have our 2 little girls who are all set. Oh, and never mind.
Oh, puppy.
Oh man.
That's a cute
Look
puppy.
at that guy. He's fuzzy, or she.
This is showing me the delay because I see no puppy. There's no puppy on the screen.
It's a muted puppy.
See...
How
Where's
sad
that?
a puppy looks.
There we go. Hi.
Here's the puppy. Hi, puppy.
Oh, Danielle's still muted, but someone should tell her that she's accidentally adopted a baby bear.
I hate it when that happens. Okay, so moving on from our news and our lives.
I saw no puppy. I saw no puppy. That is so...
We'll email you a picture of the puppy, Meg. We promise.
Totally a baby bear, though.
It does look like Little Bear.
The puppy. How could Comcast keep puppies from me? This is grounds for lawsuit. That's a very cute puppy.
I sense a need for pastoral care after.
I did say on Facebook. I was entering a deal with the devil. I just thought it would give me good service. As many have found, entering deals with the devil. There is no winning part of it.
No winning. And I was just about to start our conversation about death, but I think that Danielle had to do something with her puppy. So.
Hey, can we talk just for a second about the that the UUA has sold this piece of land someplace and has...
Yes, that was the thing I was very interested in chatting about. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
which
Yeah, in
like
Texas.
that, yeah, in Texas, right? That's great. I did see some people commenting about, like, I thought the UUA had agreed not to have anything to do with fossil fuels, but now this piece of land will be drilled on, and which is always
They
like
responded really fast. Did you see that?
What's that?
The people who donated the mineral rights, they didn't give the land, they gave the mineral rights, and they saw that and they responded very fast and explaining about that and saying, okay, the thing is that this is it's not the land, it is the mineral rights, and that the land would be drilled on no matter whether the UUA benefited from it or not. And I don't entirely understand this, but it's like if you have all these different owners, you can't just say, okay, you can't get anything from my little section. It's once it's going to be drilled, it's going to be drilled. And so the people who had donated it, I was reading about this last night on the UU World article, and they were saying, we feel that this is a way to divest from this. Because they sold the mineral rights.
Can you explain a little what you're talking about? Because I didn't see the article. I don't know what context you're talking about.
You want to explain the original story, Hank?
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah.
It's Ken and Lois Carpenter.
Millions of years ago, dinosaurs died and have been squished down. No, some members of the presidential. What's the president's
Ken and
council?
Lois Carpenter.
Yeah,
were a wonderful couple.
Yeah, really are.
Ken and Lois Carpenter, who are quite environmentally oriented, I will add, people who live in Colorado. I stayed, that beautiful place I stayed in Colorado last summer was Ken and Lois's, so I got to know them a little bit. And they don't, I think. I just thought interjecting their names, since they're so generous, would be nice.
No, that's great. Yeah, no, definitely, like, great UUs. And they donated the mineral rights to some land, and the UUA sold off a part of it a few years back, and then they were advised to sell off the rest fairly recently, and the UUA got enough money to balance the budget after the problems that we had financially last year. So everyone was going, whew. But then
yeah, it was like $944,000, and that was on top of monies that it had already earned for the UUA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And but because it would be it's the mineral rights, it's the land would be drilled upon, and probably oil taken out, or natural gas. And some people were questioning, wait, I thought the UUA had agreed to divest from carbon fuels and all this other stuff, and so that's what I was asking about. I hadn't read the updated version of it, so thank you, Johanna, for telling us all that stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting, actually. And this is our new world of new media. It looks like what happened was the article went up on uuworld.com, and then people were putting their concerns in the comments, and so one of the generous donors was answering people right in the comments, and then UU World picked that up and kind of put an addendum to the story. So it's watching news happen in real time, kind of interesting.
It was great that they responded. I finally could get unmuted. I just wanted to say that the UUA did not vote to completely divest in oil. If you looked at that resolution, it was very specific about what they were divesting in. For instance, the beach money at Shelter Rock is all oil money, and nobody divested from that. So just to be clear, that vote did not say it was a compromise vote. Some people wanted it to be completely divestment in oil, but that is not, in fact, what got passed at GA, just for the record. So, well, anything else before we move to today's topic? I'm really excited about today's topic because I'm a Scorpio and we're kind of kinky that way, but no, I'm really interested in having been through death with a number of friends and family, I'm really interested in the whole topic of dying well, and I'm so grateful that people like Danielle Di Bona, our guest today, have been really working with people in this area for, gosh, a really long time, Danielle. You've been doing this really since I met you, which was quite a while ago, correct? I mean, this has been a love of yours. And can you say why? Like, what got you into this kind of ministry, and what do you love about it? Some people would think it would be awful.
Oop, can't hear you, Danielle.
Danielle, can you check to see that your headphones are plugged in thoroughly?
It's the puppy.
Okay. Any better?
Yeah.
There
Great.
we go.
Thank you.
Start over.
Okay. I think it was my little plug. Yeah. So years ago, when I went to my then husband's college reunion, you know how people sit around and say, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a hospice chaplain," and people were pretty horrified. You know, they pulled back. Oh no, death and dying. And I wrote a sermon about it, and what I said is, I love being a hospice chaplain so much it makes my toes curl. And Meg, I've been doing this. Well, I was 16 years into hospice chaplaincy when I retired from full-time chaplaincy this summer, and immediately took a job at our local hospital to help start a palliative care program where I'm now the chaplain for palliative care. So I just can't get away from it. And I think it was my CPE experience, which I went into kicking and screaming, you know, as most of us do. And after my first unit, I signed up for a residency, so I have 5 units of CPE. And yeah, wow is right. And while I was doing my CPE residency at the Cleveland Clinic, I had mostly intensive care unit patients, and over 70% of my patients died. My colleagues told me that I was the chaplain of death, and one of them said, "Don't ever come and visit me if I'm in the hospital," which seems reasonable. And there's something really holy and special about a stranger coming in and being welcomed into a very personal and private time in the life of someone, the life and ending of life of someone and their family. And I always felt like it was a gift, and I still do, that it's a gift that patients and family let me participate in the last ritual of their life.
Danielle, we have here in Washington State Compassion and Choices, where people can choose to end their lives. And our church, East Shore Unitarian, actually the board agreed to become one of the places that people can come, and if they can't go to their family who are against them making this decision, and they don't want to die in a hospital. So it is I was at the board meeting when the board discussed, when this was brought to them to vote on, and it was such a sacred conversation, and because everyone was, went to the space of who they knew in their family who died, and, would they want this to be a safe space? And the board, to their credit, absolutely, it wasn't even an issue. It was like, of course. So it is quite profound.
Yeah, that was voted down in Massachusetts. I think that the bill was poorly written, and if we could do it again, it would probably pass. Hospice and when you use the word hospice, there's a million hospices, but hospice as a national organization does not support ending your life, and I do.
I was moved as a subscriber to People magazine that last week's cover article is about a 29-year-old woman in Oregon who's decided to end her life, and it featured her husband and her parents. I was like, I can't believe this is hitting the mainstream, but I wonder, as baby boomers age, I've watched so many people straddled with people, and I don't want to straddle my child with, oh God, I have to go visit Meg, who's completely out of it, and right. I mean, I think so many of us don't want to do that. So do you think that will change? I'm thinking it's going to change in more states.
I think it will change. Yeah, I think it will change state by state. And I give that woman a lot of credit. I don't know if I could do what she's doing. I tell my young colleagues, and they've all promised me, that when I get to a point where I'm either physically sick or I'm so demented that I'm drooling in a wheelchair, that they are to perform PTF for me.
Why do you think the hospice? I'm sorry. Why is the larger hospice organization against?
Wait. What's PTF?
Pillow to face.
What is it? Pillow to face. Okay, thank you.
Totally.
Sorry, Hank. I just put on without knowing.
Pillow to face. Pillow to face. No. That's so good. Why is the larger hospice organizations against the right to die legislation?
As a group, hospice believes that they can provide comfort care so that you don't have to go to that route, that you can be either at home or in a nursing home or even in a hospital with pain control, control of anxiety, breathing control, control of feeling like you're struggling, and the family can be supported during that time. And if it's done properly and if it's done early enough, people don't need to resort to that.
Danielle,
the problem, of course, is that it's not done early enough. 75% of people still die in the hospital, but I think it's 90% of people who say they don't want to die in the hospital.
You've been with a lot of people while they died in the hospital and in hospice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, hundreds.
How would you contrast the experience? And what do you we've called this How to Die Well, which Tom Shade, I think, is boycotting. He said, I don't want to die well. I want to go raging into the dark night. And how would you characterize death, people that you do think die well? What do you think are elements of that?
Well, I think that Tom Shade can die well by going into, fighting and screaming into it. It's a very individual thing. And how you may die well, I may not die well. I think the thing for me, and, I see people die all the time. And I had one man who kept telling me he wasn't afraid of death, but also told me his wife had her foot against the door of heaven so that he wouldn't get in. And he did not die well. He was afraid of dying, but he couldn't get there to talk about what the fears were. I have a woman now who a week ago was sitting up in bed, and she made the decision that she wasn't having any more treatment and that she wasn't going to eat or drink, and she's slowly sliding away. She made the decision, and she's dying well. If people have come to terms with their mortality, and that's a big topic, but if they've come to terms with their mortality, generally they can die well. A lot of people don't come to terms with their mortality, and that's where my job starts.
Say what that means, coming to terms with your mortality.
Well, how many times have you heard people say, if I die? Well, I always stop them and say, time out. It's not if, it's when. So what have you done to think about the when? There is no if. There's no getting out of this alive. And so for me, coming to terms and seeing my patients come to terms with their mortality means spending time with their family, fixing the things that can be fixed before they die, making amends, telling people that they love them, telling their family and friends that they love them, hearing back that they're loved, and finding that spiritual center that allows them to breathe into their dying. And it's not always religious. It's often a spiritual center, a sense that my work is done. And that's what we talk about. That's what I talk about with my patients. I had a patient this week who has a very limited life expectancy. She was told that she has 2 to 4 months to live. And she was talking to me on the day that she was discharged, and she said, and she's younger than I am, so, she's getting, in her opinion, she's being gypped. And I get that. She said, I want more. And I said, yeah, I don't blame you. She said, I'm really mad at God. I said, who can take it better than God? You know, and she said, I'm pissed off at God. I said, okay, that's fine. But she was drinking a frap, and she said, oh, I really shouldn't do this because I have diabetes. And I leaned over and said, and how long did they tell you you have to live? She said 2 to 4 months. I said, eat whatever the hell you want. You know, enjoy it. Enjoy it. And I said, I hope you will find some joy. And then she told me some of the things she wants to do in the next 2 to 4 months. She wants to, quote unquote, get my house in order. She wants to go on a short weekend trip with her husband because they had saved their whole life to go traveling when they retired, and now they can't do that. But she wants to do something. And I reminded her that everything that she does with her husband and her family is giving them more memories. And so now she's excited about getting some stuff done with their family.
Danielle, I'm curious, you just mentioned God, and
yeah.
I'm curious, I mean, and during your CP, I just finished CP, I'm a seminarian, second year at Meadville.
Yeah.
You know, and they're always leaning on you to enunciate your theology when you're in that difficult situation. So I'm wondering, for you, what's your theology of end-of-life care?
So, of course, we have to be where our patients are, and most of them are Christian, and certainly now I would say 70% of my patients are Catholic. I live in a very Catholic area of the country. When we're doing God talk, I tell them I don't work for a God who punishes you. You know, that's not my business. And if God is a punishing God, then I quit. I work for a God who cries with us, who holds us close so that we can feel the comfort that we need spiritually. And it can be God, it can be the holy, it can be the universe. It's wherever they are. And that's my theology of a universe that holds us gently so that we have less fear. A universe that cries with us because sometimes life isn't fair.
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome.
You passed CP.
I passed CP. Well, I would certainly hope so.
Danielle, I'm curious, and really this is just kind of a question from your own experience. When I was doing CPE, I remember a lot of the nurses and the long-term chaplains talking about how they felt that most people die the way they live in terms of if they had a patient who really was an extrovert and liked being around a lot of people, they often would die surrounded by people. And then if it was someone who was very private, then the 5 minutes when his wife finally slipped out of the room to the restroom, that would be when he would die. Has that been your experience?
I would describe it differently than that, the extrovert-introvert thing. 2 things. People who have loved well will have family and friends around them when they die. People who have not loved well will often be alone at the end of their life. And that breaks my heart, so I end up being the person who just kind of hangs with them until they're ready to slip away. And then as far as waiting until somebody slips out, I think people choose when they're going to die. And I'm especially aware after 16 years of watching this happen that parents, especially mothers, don't want to die with their children in the room. And so one of the things I tell family members, the children of the person dying, they say, I'll feel terrible for the rest of my life if I'm not here when mother dies. I don't want her to die alone. And I say, wait. I can't tell you whether or not to feel guilty, but this is my experience. Especially mothers do not want to die with their children in the room. Years ago, I had a patient at the Cleveland Clinic. She was in her 30s, and she had a 4 or 5-year-old son. And she'd been there for a long time, and a lot was going on. And now she's in the ICU, which is a damn shame, but she's in the ICU, and her family is surrounding her bed, and her son was sleeping on the end of the bed. Now, what they asked, they needed to extubate her, so they asked the family to leave. And the physicians, the intensivists, said to me, you got to corral this family and get them right back into the room because she's not going to last 5 minutes. So I said, okay, my job is to herd these cats and get them back to the bedside. So I do my job and I get them to the bedside. She didn't die. She didn't die. And she didn't die. And she didn't die. The next morning, I went up to the ICU. She's still alive. Her little boy wakes up, and Daddy takes the little boy to the bathroom, and Mom died. I mean, within 30 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, my husband had that experience with his mom. He spent hours with her. She had cancer. It was very sad. And he was with her for hours. He was the last one with her. And as soon as he left, I think within the hour, she was gone. And she wouldn't, it's exactly what you said, she wouldn't leave when he was there.
No.
That's what happened.
Parents are protected.
My mom, too. I stayed with my mom for weeks, and every day the hospice people would come and say, she is not going to make it through the night. She hadn't eaten or drunk, and every day they'd say, call everyone, this is it. And after a while, everyone kept coming, But finally, after 3 weeks, I thought, I'm going to go home. I mean, I had a young kid at the time, and I was half an hour down the road, and I got the call. And it did feel like that. It kind of felt to me like she was saying, as long as there's a party, I want to be there. Yeah. And it didn't. I was sad. I was very sad not to have been there. But I was there so many. I mean, what I saw was she crossed over and crossed back. She'd quit breathing for minutes on end, and we would think she was dead over and over. And she was completely, on morphine. And so there were so many ways that I saw that death isn't just you're here and then it's a much more fluid. And for me, that experience of being with my mom, which is the most dedicated experience of being with someone dying I've had, was kind of like waiting for a birth. It felt in a weird way like I've felt when I've been with women who are going to give birth, because again, you don't know when it's going to happen. There's this mystery around the whole thing, and that kind of gave me some peace to feel that connection.
We often, my colleagues and I, say that we're midwives for death. We help people take their last journey, not their first journey. And I tell families all the time at the bedside, give your loved one a break and get out of the room. Every hour, every single hour, get out of the room, walk down the hall, walk back, or go get a cup of coffee, even if it's 10 minutes every hour, but give them a break because they need that time.
I wanted to ask about how Unitarians mourn, because it feels like I was raised Muslim, and as soon as somebody dies, my father died when I was 13, there's an intense attention paid to the grieving, to the sadness. Yes. Everyone wears black. We cover the mirrors. Well, the Jews cover the mirrors. But I feel like with Unitarians, as soon as someone dies, there's already a plan for celebration of death. And it feels like, to me, let's be okay with the grieving, sadness part. And I feel like that's missing when I've been in congregations and someone passes away. I mean, there's, yes, there's pastoral care with the minister for, but there's not a mourning, and that I feel is missing.
Yeah, but I think it's not just Unitarians. I think it's a typical sort of Protestant response of like, okay, somebody dies, everyone turns their oven on to start baking macaroni and cheese casseroles, and we have the service. But I think it's true, And I did a memorial service for a young man whose wedding I'd done a year before, and I was saying to his widow, I said, like, there's something to be said about like the little Portuguese women that I would see growing up, who for the year after their husband's death would wear black. So that everybody knew. I mean, like, obviously you don't want it to be, repressive and sort of saying like you have to wear black, But I think as a sign for everybody to kind of go, oh right, like there's this process that's going on, this grieving, and to have a physical representation of it, I think it's really, it's a pretty good thing to see at times and to have happen.
There's a native tribe out in the Northwest that when your parent, your child, or your spouse dies, the tribe takes you out of your home, takes you to a special place for 1 full year to grieve. They empty out your home. They do during that year, because your grieving is your job, and it's a hard job. They even wash your hair for you. And then after a year, they bring you back into the community. There's a big potluck, and everybody brings something, and they re-establish your home. And we don't do that. We get 3 days off, right? Yeah, I don't know anybody who has grieved appropriately in 3 days.
Right. Well,
It took me 6 months to grieve my dog.
Yeah. And what I've seen is a lot of people who want to deny their grief.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, a few funerals or memorial services where I've had people say, no, I don't want anything sad, I don't want anything negative, I just want to celebrate this person's life. And I've been like, okay, this denying it is not going to make it better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was with a family yesterday, and the adult daughter was sitting off to the side, and she was choked up. She had been crying, and I scooted down next to her and was talking to her, and she said, "I'm so sorry I'm crying. I'm so sorry I'm crying." And I said, "Please don't apologize. When is a better time to cry than right now?" And she said, "I feel so weak. I don't feel strong, and I need to be strong." I said, "Your mother is dying. She's your only mother. You're her daughter. Cry. Cry as much as you need to." But there's a sense that we shouldn't even cry at the bedside of someone who's dying.
When the way we lift up the bravery of, Jackie Kennedy or whomever publicly keeps a stiff upper lip, and then what is the cost of that? And how much does our denial of death feed into our disrespect for life as part of, what I
really.
Yeah.
I have a question. Sorry to jump in. About how to have conversations. A lot of us, you look across our age group here, probably a lot of us are in some place of elder care. So how to initiate conversations about end of life with our elderly parents?
Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Well, anytime I can help. That's one of the hardest things that we do. There's a couple of things going on. That generation, they don't want to talk about anything that might be upsetting, right? Yeah. Secondly, they don't want to upset their children. And third, they somehow think that whatever, just don't worry, you make the decisions when the time comes. It puts you in a real rough spot, because when the time comes, you're getting all kinds of cross information.
Especially if you have siblings.
Oh, please, yes. So there's some literature out there that says every once a year at a holiday meal, you should discuss end-of-life plans with everybody at the table. I'm not sure, given how I hear so much about family issues and family dynamics around the Thanksgiving dinner table, that that's the best suggestion. But that doesn't mean you can't do it over a Sunday dinner once a year. And if they're not open to talking about it, so then do it once every 6 months. The less they want to talk, the more you want to try. And, don't throw everything at them at once. What we often do is we start with the big stuff. If you have thus and such illness, or you're thus and such age, if you have to go to the hospital, would you want them to pound on your chest to bring you back to life? Or would you want a tube down your throat to help you breathe? Those are the two biggies, because the older we get, the better chance we have of ending up in an ambulance going to the emergency room. And if mom or dad wants somebody to pound on their chest, well, then you've got a decision made. But at least you know what it is.
I was going to say, last time I was at my parents' house just a couple of weeks ago, my mom was telling me how at her church, at the Unitarian Church in New Bedford, they had a meeting, of folks to talk about end-of-life issues, and my mom's like, so now, and I've already gone over with my mom, like, memorial service where things are gonna, where she's gonna be buried, and we have a family plot about a half mile from where I grew up, where my parents live, and which I have to say, the part of me that feels very I don't know. It's always been sort of like, oh, and that's where I'm going to end up, right there, just down the street from where, next to great grandpa's farm. But my mom was just hilarious. She's like, now don't forget, I want and you can just put me right in there, and that's fine. And are you going to speak at I said, Mom, I'll speak at your funeral. I'm not going to lead it. Paul will lead it. He's great, but don't yeah, she's ready for it. She's like, okay, Mom, that's great,
But do you know what she wants if she ends up at the hospital? You know what she wants after the fact. Yeah, you do. Good. You're lucky.
My parents sat us down, too. I have 4 siblings. And when they were both still in good health, I think the church, again, had done an end-of-life workshop. And they said, if we have a stroke, don't call 911. All these real specific things. And then they said my favorite line, look, we left what we've got. We divided evenly among you kids. We know that you have different levels of wealth. We don't care, but we don't really believe in heaven and hell. But if you're fighting after we're dead, wherever we are, we're going to be furious at you.
Love it. Love it. I have one of those families where, like anytime we get together, we're going back over all of this. My sister, whenever she used to travel, would call me and, my pearls are in the top drawer. I want you to have them. So my family is great about this, but I have to throw out, because you're talking the end of life, I have to throw out a PSA to anyone who hears this, because even my parents, who absolutely cross every T and dot every I, it wasn't until I was doing CPE and I was in a hospital where someone he drove himself to the hospital, checked himself into the ER, and then had a massive heart attack. And so I was with the nurse who was going through his phone trying to figure out who's a family member. And I called my parents and I said, do y'all have, like a card in your wallet that has the other person's phone number, that has an in case of emergency? Yeah. And they said, oh, no, we keep that in the glove box. I was like, guess what? Guess the situation where that would not help you. So everyone, right now, put an ICE card in your wallet. And my thing was, as anyone who's done CPE.
ICE?
ICE, in case of emergency. Death, if you die in a hospital, it can be extremely violent when they are trying to bring you back. And I would hate for my parents to go through that, because that is not their wishes. So, have that card where they can call someone.
And it generally doesn't work anyway. After all, your ribs are broken and you're in the ICU intubated and they're sticking a major line into your artery in your neck, you're going to die anyway. There's 5% chance of success.
Danielle, will you tell us a beautiful death story?
A beautiful death
story.
Oh, God. They're all beautiful, in
Maggie.
their own way. So I had a man a couple of years ago, and his wife had died before him. And he was Catholic, and he was afraid to die. And when I asked him some questions, when I sat with him, and I knew he was afraid to die because the staff had told me he was afraid to die. One of the things you don't do is walk in and say, hey, I hear you're afraid to die, so what's up? So I sat with him and we chatted a little bit, and we got there, and he was not afraid to die. He was afraid that he would never see his wife after his death, because he didn't think he would go to heaven, and he was positive that's where she was. So we talked a little bit about who God was in his life, and how, his God is a loving God, and if that is his biggest wish, then, God is going to hear that, and God is going to take him there. There can't be anything that he did that would be so bad that God would keep him from his wife. And he kind of laid back, and he thought about that, and I was holding his hand, and about 20 minutes later, he just slipped away. I think that was a beautiful death.
So I have a question for you, Danielle. One of our colleagues, the always brilliant Sharon Wiley, wrote something that she posted up on a blog yesterday, so I assume you haven't seen it, called Nobody Needs a Church, or Lament of the Ministers. And in it, she talked about the people who say, you know, I'm spiritual but not religious, I'm not comfortable with institutionalized religion, but then we as ministers, you know, get the phone calls saying, oh, would you go visit my dying father? Or, you know, so we've talked a little bit about your experience with the religious. What has your experience been with those who, before they got to this time, would say, I'm not religious, I have no, you know, no need of a church, a minister, a religious community?
Yep. Yeah, it's so different here in Southeast Massachusetts because I don't come across those people very often, the spiritual but not religious. I do remember a case in Cleveland where I took care of a woman who, she was a very successful businesswoman. She was not religious, and she was in the hospital and she was dying, and she was distraught. And the reason she was distraught wasn't because there was no God or heaven for her, but because she had not married, had not had a family, and given over her life to her work. So she felt like her life was not valuable, that she was leaving nothing behind. And I find that people who are spiritual but not religious, that's their biggest concern. What am I leaving behind? We talked a little bit, and I learned about her business and what she had done. She was high up on the corporate ladder. We talked about the people she worked with, and I asked her if she had ever mentored anyone. And she told me at length a number of young women that she had mentored over her years at work. So for this woman, her life did have value. What is the ultimate question, I think, whether you're religious or not, is what is the meaning of my life in light of my impending death? And we all should ask that question because that's the route we're on. That's our road. And she was able to recognize that she was leaving behind a great legacy. And that gave her comfort and gave her the ability to die in peace. And she wasn't the least bit religious. I also talk about how the universe holds us up and how we're part of the universe. And when we die, we go back to that universe. And that ends up being helpful for people who don't claim a religious tradition.
I don't know about others, but I hear from atheists in the CLF who are some. I mean, my mother was like, you know, they say there are no atheists in foxholes. I'm an atheist in a foxhole. You know, she died without any sense of fear about that. But I hear from people who are. I don't know if it's because they didn't grow up atheists. They became atheists. If when they became atheists they threw everything out at once. I'm not sure. Do you see any? Because this is kind of new to me. Because like I say, I knew best it didn't lead to fear of death. But is there anything that, like the universe, is that your main tip for talking to people about
the universe, nature? What I have found is that the people who have the most issue with people who don't have faith are the people who have faith. And they'll say to me over and over again, boy, oh boy, I don't know how those people who don't have a religious faith manage to get through this. And, you know, I don't argue with them. I think in my head, you'd be surprised. They do a pretty good job. One of the things I always do when I do funerals or memorial services is I throw in a piece about how we live on in the stories about us, and that those who are in the room need to share all the stories they have with the family members, because there's something the family is going to hear that they didn't know, and there's something that's going to be heard or is already known about the person who dies that's going to be passed on. And someday, the youngest child at that memorial service will be holding their great-grandchild on their lap, and they'll be telling a story about that person who's in the casket or in the vase. And they'll say, you know, I learned this lesson from Mary or Joe. And so Joe lives on. And that's life everlasting. Whether you believe in heaven or not, that's another way to live forever. My patients get comfort from that.
I want you by my side when I'm dying.
Me too.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to beat you all to the punch because you're all younger than I am.
Oh,
Well,
well.
that actually,
Well,
so there's a good question right there, Danielle, and that is, what do you want for your own death?
Oh, I have plans. Well, besides pillow to face, I have a fear, not of dying, but of being stuck, sitting in a wheelchair with my mind with me in a nursing home because there's nobody left to take care of me, where I have to have a roommate and I have to get up at 8 and I have to have somebody take care of me. So I live in fear of that. That's my big fear. And I see it every day, every single day in the nursing homes. So I have more fear about living than dying. My plan is to continue to stockpile the pills so that when I get to that point, I can make my own decision. I've told my family, they all know what I want and I do not want. I'm thinking about getting DNR tattooed across my chest so that I will never be resuscitated. Everybody knows if I fall down and break my neck or have a stroke that they'd read the Boston Globe from the front to the back before they call 911. And so, you know, I've lived a great life, and I hope I have a whole bunch more years. But when the time comes, I'm ready. I've also told everyone that I want to be cremated, and I want my ashes to be put in a green trash bag with all of my dead dog's ashes, shaken up real well, and put in a big vase and put next to the fireplace, because I want to see what's going on. Does that answer your question?
That's great, and I think that probably for our viewers, if they haven't heard someone talk so matter-of-factly, I think this could really be a teaching moment. So thank you for doing that.
I hope so.
I saw Nadia Bowles-Weber speak
love her.
this past year. Yeah, and one of the things that she said, which I thought was really great, she said she was talking about sort of like the change in church and all that sort of stuff. And she said, you know what churches do? You know, the one thing we do that nobody else does is that we do death really well. We learn how to do these things, and she gave examples of not only services that she's led for people in her congregation, but also people from her church going to a place where there'd been like a gang shooting, and just having sort of a small memorial service, putting down some flowers, and just really bringing God and Christ for her church to that place. Really helping. At least they feel like helping the community at least acknowledge that other people are aware of this, that the pain.
Yeah.
Well, Danielle, it's been fabulous to have you with us. And this time of the year, they say the veil is very thin between living and dying. So it seemed like just the right time. Have you any last words?
Any last?
Just for this episode.
Maybe that's the wrong question.
Yeah, I do. It's been working with people who are dying for most of my, all of my professional life that has reminded me that we're only promised the minute that we have right now, and we might not even get all 60 seconds. None of us knows when our time is up. And so you need to really embrace life, every single thing about it. Just embrace every single day, because it is a miracle and a glory out there, and who knows? Who knows? This has been great fun.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
See you all next week. And let's see, someone already said who's here next week. I forget, but anyone remember offhand? Bob? Sorry. I bet
Rebecca Montgomery. Is that right?
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Rebecca
yay!
Montgomery.
Yay!
Yeah.
Love Rebecca.
So, yeah. So lovely, really. I feel like taking the rest of the day off and loving life. But, you know.
Good. Good.
Hey, you say good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
Bye.
being with
Bye.
us.
Love and blessings.
Thanks for watching.